So, quite an extraordinary outburst by Antonio Conte. Our chief football correspondent, Alex Crook, was at yesterday's game and he joins us now to discuss, really, what happens next, I guess. Alex, good morning to you. How are you?
Alex?
Yeah, very good morning. I think I'm still reeling, actually, from Antonio Conte's behaviour after the game yesterday. I've been doing this job in various guises for 20 years. I know I don't look old enough before you say it, but I think that's the biggest assassination of a group of players and a football club by a manager that I've ever witnessed or experienced. And I have to say, we've got an international break coming up now. I think Antonio Conte has almost made his position untenable. I don't really see a way that he can be in the dugout for Spurs when the Premier League resumes after this fortnight off, because not only has he chucked the players under the bus, that would have been a very awkward journey home. I would imagine it will be quite a quiet training ground when they get back to business. But he's also called out Daniel Levy and the owner, by pointing out that Spurs have underachieved for the last 20 years. So it's really fascinating now to see how this plays out. I think we all knew that Conte would be leaving the club at the end of the season when his contract expires anyway. It's been clear in my mind for a long time now that he doesn't want to be there. I think a lot of the players are sick to the back teeth of him. I think a lot of the Tottenham fans are fed up with Conte's antics, as Jamie O'Hara underlined on the phone in last night. And I think Daniel Levy's probably had enough as well. It just feels like a very unhappy marriage, doesn't it?
Alex, did you say you was at the game yesterday?
I was, yeah.
Yeah, now, from your perspective, you've watched the whole 90 minutes of the game and obviously the added on time. They've conceded 2 late goals. Tell us, could you make that accusation against the players about being selfish and what you witnessed from the Tottenham team?
I don't really know where he was going with that. They weren't particularly good, Tottenham, but I don't think it's a particularly great squad of players. Harry Kane, 1 chance, 1 goal. Defensively, they were okay probably until the last 15, 20 minutes. And then he actually made a couple of changes, Conte, which has been lost in all of this. And maybe this is a deliberate deflection tactic. But he brings on Pape Sarr, who ends up giving away the penalty. He brings on an extra defender, sacrifices Kulusevski. The sub was subbed off. And I just felt that invited Southampton back into the game, really. And I think, better performing manager at this moment in time would have just taken the game to Southampton, realised that the Premier League's bottom club themselves are low in confidence and vulnerable, rather than being so defensive that you just end up on the back foot.
It's extraordinary what he's had to say yesterday. And, he's spoken about 20 years as an owner and they've never won something. He questioned why. He went on to say, the number of high-profile managers that have come into Tottenham that, from just sort of reading between the lines and what he's saying, you think he's saying that basically those managers come in and it's their names that are then tarnished by not being able to achieve anything. But it's more of a bigger situation, it's more of an issue because it's down to the owners not actually doing enough for those managers. And yet, actually, he spent a fair bit of money, hasn't he, Antonio Conte?
I was about to say that. For me, Tottenham's problems go back to when they made the crazy decision, in my opinion, to get rid of Mauricio Pochettino not long after he'd taken Spurs to a Champions League final. That achievement looks all the more incredible with every trophyless season that passes. That was the time when they really needed to back their manager. I think they were at a crossroads. They were moving into the new stadium, or just moved into the new stadium. They'd come close to challenging for the Premier League title when Leicester pulled off that incredible success, and they'd made the final of the biggest European club competition in the world. They look a long way away from that now. They didn't back Pochettino, as they've certainly lavished Antonio Conte, and as a result of that, I think they've gone backwards. But listen, a lot of what Conte was saying was correct. I don't think he said it in the right tone. I don't necessarily think the immediate aftermath of squandering a 3-1 lead away against the worst team in the Premier League gives him a position of strength to make those points. But actually, the argument's shot down when you look at the Premier League table as well. You only have to look across North London to see the job that Mikel Arteta has done in transforming Arsenal, to see that he's outperforming Antonio Conte. And actually, Brighton, 7th in the table, if they win their 2 games in hand, they go above Spurs. Are you telling me that Roberto De Zerbi has had more resource than Conte? It's nonsense. Antonio Conte is supposed to be an elite coach. He's supposed to be a winner. He isn't doing his job properly. He can blame the players. He can blame the board all he likes. But he's not the innocent victim in this. And I think the fact that he's made it so clear with his body language that he's not interested in the Spurs project anymore, I think that's playing into the players' hands, and maybe that's why they're underperforming.
Oh, Alex, it's only my opinion on this because I've heard this numerous times in football where sometimes managers get a whiff of there might be a change happening at their football club and then suddenly they go out on a whim. Felt like that yesterday, where maybe there is a deeper issue that Antonio Conte was facing, is that he might not be the manager anymore. Because managers do find out. I've heard this numerous times when coaches, we've heard that there's something going to be developing at the football club. And that's what I felt like when I heard him talk yesterday. It's like, you've gone both guns blazing.
So, like, you might have heard from his agent something's
well,
going
they do.
on behind
They
the scenes,
sometimes, the club are considering a change. And he's gone, do you know what? I'm going to exactly say what I feel now. I'm going with it full guns blazing.
Well, I don't think you have to be Miss Marple to work out that Antonio Conte won't be Tottenham manager at the start of next season. It's a very open secret that they're looking for potential replacements. We know that Mauricio Pochettino himself is keen to go back there. So, yeah, I think you're probably right. I'd actually go a little bit further and say this is an attempt from Antonio Conte to force his exit from the football club earlier than the end of the season. I think he's had enough. I think he wants out. I think he's hoping that Daniel Levy pulls the trigger during this international break.
He has, though, been such a fascinating character. But I've said it before, I cannot imagine what it's like to work with him because you get so many different emotions from him. You go back to last month when they beat Manchester City. He put out on Instagram a picture of the team together on the pitch. He's not in this particular picture, but his words were always with you, even from afar, because obviously he was away after his gallbladder surgery. Proud of this whole team, he said. And there's been times where he's bigged up his side, had the most amazing players I've ever worked with. And then the next, I can't get the best out of this team. I cannot imagine what it must be like to work with a manager that is so up and down, Alex.
Well, I think that's probably a big factor in why there are so many unhappy players on the books at Spurs. And I'm told that the dressing room is an unhappy place at this moment in time because the manager is so unpredictable. I think we should caveat that and say that, Antonio Conte has had a very difficult year.
Yes.
Off the pitch. He's had some bereavements. He's lost people close to him. Obviously, he's had that health problem as well that was more complicated than it first appeared. So, we have to look at the human side as well. But, I mean, Cass can probably say better than we can. But when a manager, is praising you to the hilt 1 minute and then absolutely slaughters you the next, I mean, as a player, when you don't know where you stand with a manager, it's just not going to help improve performances at all, is it?
No, it's not. And you can feel like, he's contradicting himself the way he was acting last week and this week. I mean, you could make an argument, and being devil's advocate on this, you could say, well, was Antonio Conte's act yesterday selfish?
Possibly.
I think his whole demeanour has been selfish, and we had a really good conversation about this during game day before the 3 o'clock kickoffs yesterday. And both Leanne Sanderson and myself made the point that Antonio Conte, the way that he's been speaking for some time now, it's almost like he's doing Tottenham a favour. He's this, winning machine manager that actually has lowered himself to come and take charge of a club like Tottenham, who never win anything. I mean, I think one of the things he said yesterday was, I'm not used to this. I'm not used to finishing 7th and 8th. Well, he knew the background when he took a very highly paid job. He knew the remit. The remit was to at least qualify for the Champions League and to challenge for a trophy. Now, let's look at some of the reasons why they're not competing for trophies. They managed to lose over 2 legs to a very poor AC Milan side. That was a tie that they should have won. That was on Conte. Again, he made a bizarre change. They're chasing a goal. OK, they're down to 10 men. He sacrifices an attacker and brings on Davinson Sanchez when they need a goal to stay in the Champions League. That's not selfish from the players. That's on the manager. They went out of the FA Cup against a Sheffield United side who were more interested in their own promotion aspirations and really progressing in that competition. He leaves out Harry Kane, and another route to a trophy is slammed shut. So Conte is far from blameless in all of this.
And Sheffield United made changes as well, Alex, 7 of them.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They didn't really want to win that FA Cup tie,
No.
Sheffield United. So for Tottenham, who need a trophy, to manage to go out on the night, that is unacceptable. He could have been fired after that, in all honesty.